Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel. How much fun is this? I mean, really, this is a work day. Do you believe that? Honest to goodness,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
it is a absolutely gorgeous day, and it's cool enough to make it really fun. We're coming to you, obviously, from the Grand Hotel, and it is the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And speaking of policy, got a couple of young ladies here who really formulate policy when you get down to it. I mean, it's your research and the things that you do. And the ladies, let's hear a little bit about your organization first of all. A little introduction, right?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. I'm Brittany Affolter Kane. I'm with Michigan's University Research Corridor. We're an alliance of Michigan's three Research One institutions. They're research intensive in the state of Michigan: Michigan State, University of Michigan, and Wayne State.
Right. Big contributors too, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. All right.
I'm Tyler Thiel. I serve as the vice president of Anderson Economic Group. We have three practice areas, so we work in public policy, market analysis, as well as strategy and business valuation. But my work is focused on public policy, and I've had the privilege of working on the URC reports for 17 years now.
Of course, Dr. Patrick Anderson is the founder of the place, and now you're doing all the work. We know that, all right. But anyway, we're going to talk about a couple of things here where you kind of work jointly on this. But let's talk about the URC first of all, what it is and its contributions, and especially economically.
So, as research intensive universities, we bring some unique contributions to our state's economy. And thankfully, to AEG, every other year we do an economic impact report. And we found that in fiscal year 2023, our three universities had a net economic impact of $23.9 billion to the state.
Billion.
Billion. And I don't know. I have a hard time in conceptualizing what 1 billion is, let alone nearly 24. And so one way to think about it is, did you go to the NFL draft?
Well, I followed it. I
Okay.
didn't go down.
So it was amazing, had a huge economic impact. I think you did the economic impact for that too. And while it's not exactly a perfect comparison, to conceptualize 24 billion, it would be like throwing the NFL draft 144 times over a year. And we do that every year. And it reaches every county in the state of Michigan.
That's a lot of football players when you think of it. It
Yeah.
really is. Yeah, well, and it is. And this, you don't think about the spin-offs and the tech
And that's
transfer.
not included in that
Yeah,
24 billion.
I know. And that's
Yeah.
so the contributions go far beyond that. All right, so let's hear a little bit about your study and what we found out.
Yeah, so when we look at the contributions of the URC, we're focused on the operations, the investments, and the employment that come out of Michigan State, U of M, and Wayne State. So, like you guys mentioned, this isn't the beyond entrepreneurship, tech transfer, patents that go quite far into the future. We're focused on a given year, a snapshot in time of the jobs, output, and earnings that the three institutions generate in the state. And so, doing that very carefully, considering substitution, if other activity were to displace, considering the fact that some dollars do leave the state, even though there's a good effort to invest most of them here, that's where we get that nearly 24 billion in economic impact for last year.
It's pretty amazing. And I got to tell you, I just want to dwell on Anderson Economic Group a little bit because you guys do a whole lot of studies like this that really help us understand how economy is working. In your studies, did you find changes up and down through the COVID years related to either end?
Oh, yes, definitely. So 2019, we were coming off a really high. So, for example, we use data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. We use RIMS multipliers in some of our analyses, and we dial down from the top industry we're looking at to sub industries to specific businesses and goods and services that are within a given industry. So you come off multipliers in 2019 that are up there, right? Very low in 2020, and then really weird things in the data in 2021, where as they should, the BLS is trying to account for example, increase in federal debt that supported all of this other state and local economic activity. So we really have our work cut out for us looking at the data carefully and making sure that it reflects the real picture going forward 21, 22, 23. all of these data sets are becoming kind of affected by adjustments that are attempting to be made to sort of normalize and also realize the true effect of the pandemic.
That's pretty amazing. We saw a lot of our statistics with our future business index that went up and down and almost had to do a different survey because it was such an aberration for those years. Brittany, we talked about tax transfer and some of those things. Tell me a little bit about enrollment at the URCs and what's happened with that.
It has been going up. We're about 152,000 students enrolled at the undergraduate and the graduate levels. And so we are still one of the top in clusters, university innovation clusters around the nation, places like Silicon Valley and Boston's Route 128 and North Carolina's Research Triangle. We're doing very well.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because a lot of enrollments at other institutions are actually going down a little bit. So you guys are really stepping up.
Well, and that's where we have the advantage of looking at the trends over a long period of time. So, like you mentioned with the pandemic, there are these ebbs and flows. But if you look at 5 year or 10 year trends within the URC, the growth, the additional investment, the additional talent attraction to our state is really impressive. In some of those years, if you look at different snapshots in time, you can see that the URC is really doing more with less when things get tight and things fluctuate.
Well, listen, I wish we had more time. I do. I could spend
And I
hours with you
one
later.
more thing, just so one of the things that their group did is really look at, and they're going to be doing more work for us, looking at how we're preparing talent in what key industries. There are four key industries our presidents are focused on that are critical to the state of Michigan: sustainability, artificial intelligence, life and health sciences, and advanced manufacturing. So we're really excited. That'll be coming. More to tell you later.
So there's more to do next year. Excellent. Ah, Tyler, Brittany, thanks so much for coming. Anderson Economic Group, and of course the URC. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you being here with us on Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman, and you're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. And we are at the Grand Hotel right now. And of course, we're here as we always are annually for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And we have caught the Grand Poobah this year. Is that a good way to say it, probably?
I think so. Yes, I am chairing this year's Mackinac Policy Conference.
Well, Suzanne Shank is, chair, and I'll tell you what, that's a big job. But before we get to it, let's talk a little bit about you are with Siebert Williams and Shank and Company. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yes, I was a co-founder of the firm in 1996 with Muriel Siebert, who was the first woman to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. So we have built a business that is among the most active players in the capital markets. We help corporations raise capital when they go out for bonding or even when at the beginning of their process before becoming a public company, when they, do IPOs. Yeah, IPOs,
Yeah.
share buybacks, commercial paper. But we also have another core business, which is municipal bond underwriting. So we do lots of underwriting for major infrastructure projects around the country. And I chose that area because I'm a former civil engineer and wanted to not only work on designing infrastructure, but now financing.
Wow. Well, so how long has the firm been around?
We were founded in 1996. We've grown dramatically through mergers and acquisitions and are the top ranked minority and women owned investment banking firm in the country.
I'm not surprised. You are a driver, I can tell,
Oh,
just from sitting there. Well, listen, let's talk a little bit about this because you've been very involved in the chamber through the years.
yes, I've been involved with the chamber for many years. I joined the executive committee a few years ago. I'm on the racial justice committee as well. And they asked me to take on this role, which I was rather surprised. I am not a native Michigander, but certainly this is my home. I've been here over 31 years. So I was really honored to be asked to chair this really important event that brings together business, philanthropy, legislators, federal, state, and local policymakers, and the nonprofit world to try to tackle our biggest challenges in the state.
Well, it's a tremendous setting, and you wind up like we'll do 50 interviews in the next 2 days. You know how long it takes us to do 50 interviews otherwise, but they're all right here. And there's a lot of important announcements that come out of this gathering too.
Yes, absolutely. I'm anxious to hear what we always have the governor with a few key announcements, the mayor. I think Secretary Benson also has a few press conferences. So there's so much going on at the same time. It's really hard to keep up.
Well, and you've got both the U.S. senators for
Yes,
Michigan in the building too, so been into
absolutely.
both of them.
Yes, and we have the Commerce Secretary coming.
Yeah.
We have CEOs, we have college presidents. We have just a dynamic group of thought leaders converging on the island this week.
All right, so let's talk about you were surprised. I can't believe you were surprised they asked you, of course. But let's talk about what all is entailed in that because that's not like okay, we'll put your name on it and you show up the day of.
No, I think the chair's primary role is to really craft an agenda and help recruit key speakers that will be really impactful, that people want to hear from. And I don't do it alone, though. We have a nice CEO advisory council. We have a planning committee. The chamber team is expert in their execution. So it really takes a village. I call the governor for her ideas. I call the mayor. So, I'm just really pleased that everyone was so willing to answer the call every time, roll up their sleeves, and help attract this great talent.
Well, I also knowing the governor well, I think she uses an excuse to come up to that beautiful
Yes.
summer home that she
It's
has.
a lovely house. I'll look forward to being there this evening. But yeah, this island is very unique in that respect. And it's a wonderful. I used to bring my kids when they were young up here, and they enjoyed it. So it's just a pleasant environment to have an important discussion like this.
All right, so at this point, so we've covered how much work this is for you. What happens back at the home front? I mean, who's tending your desk?
I've got about 145 employees
That should cover
who are still working very hard day in and day out. You know, we're doing deals every day. And, I know I've been able to attract a lot of great talent over the years, and especially in recent years, as some of my larger competitors have pulled out of certain aspects of the business. So we've been growing the firm and, seeing it and doing, lots of deals.
Well, we do a semi-annual survey, and talent is still the number one issue, getting it. So the fact that you can get it speaks highly of your firm and the culture.
Yes, I'm in a, very specific area. And we hire folks right out of college, in finance, but we also hire people that may become available experts in their areas from other firms. So I've been lucky, and we are national.
Yeah.
We have offices all over.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes, yes,
All right. Well, that's good to know.
yes.
All right. Well, listen, Suzanne, thanks so much for joining us. Suzanne is, of course, Suzanne Shank is one of the founders of Siebert, Williams, and Shank, LLC. And congratulations on this year's chairmanship of this wonderful day. So we'll
Thank
have
you.
you in mind the whole time.
Please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to have you
Okay.
here. You've been watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where we're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. We'll be back with more. You have. All right, ready? Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. And we are here at the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. And why are we here? Well, one thing is, it's the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. So, who do you have when you have a policy conference? Policymakers. So, here we are with U.S. Senator Gary Peters. Gary, it's always good to see you.
It's great to be with you, Chris, as always.
How you doing?
I'm well. I'm well.
I don't ask that lightheartedly. Your job's not an easy one.
It is time consuming, and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But things are well.
Are they? Okay, so I was going to ask you about the tenor in DC because it seems to be getting a little better. It seems to be not as partisan, not as argumentative, and people aren't saying nasty things about each other.
Yeah. Well, it is always a challenge, but we try to work together in a bipartisan way. I take great pride, as you know, in working in a bipartisan way, and been ranked as the most
Second
bipartisan,
most, yeah,
second
I
most in the
saw
U.S.
that.
Senate,
Oh,
and that's about trying to find common ground. And I find when you do that and you're working on legislation, that builds a relationship that then translates to the next bill and the next piece, and you start looking at each other not as political rivals, but as folks who may have different views, but nevertheless can
yeah.
find common ground and solve problems. So
Well, that's what democracy is.
it is. It is indeed. You know, it's the one thing about election time, but when elections are over, you got to govern, you got to solve problems, and that's what people expect, and they should demand that from their elected officials.
And what do they always say? The best compromise is one that makes everybody a little angry.
No, that's usually, yeah, that's true. That's probably true.
Yeah,
And that's, that's what happens when you try to get in the middle too, that you tend to anger if you're looking at the political spectrum.
yeah.
When you find common ground, that means the far left and the far right are not going to be happy with you. So you have like both sides angry at you, not just one side angry at you.
You know, my dad said to me once, he said, public service is something you have to do, but remember, it's the best way to do the right thing and lose friends.
Well, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's a little of that element
Well,
there.
that is true. Sometimes you'll make decisions that people don't agree on. There's a saying in local government. It says, "Enemies come and go," or no, excuse, friends come and go, but enemies just grow.
Yeah.
So that does sometimes go with it.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, listen, you've been very busy with a number of issues. Let's talk about Selfridge
Hmm.
and what's going on there with the tanker.
Yeah, we're really excited about what's happening at Selfridge. We have right now two old platforms, the KC-135. These are fueling aircraft that have been around since the early 1960s or the late 50s. Old
I've
aircraft.
seen them.
It's time. In fact, when I was out, the aircraft that I was looking at was built in 1958, and the guy said that's really old. And I said, I was born in 1958. He goes, I'm sorry, sir, I meant vintage. But these are old.
That's
And
hilarious.
so now there's eight of them out there, but we have the KC-46s that the Air Force just announced. It was very competitive. There were 10 states aggressively looking to get these aircraft. There are only two squadrons available, and we snagged one of them.
Wow.
And we have 12 of them coming in, so it's a 50% increase. And this is an aircraft now which will be like the other one. It's going to be around 50 years,
Wow.
and it'll be at Selfridge. But the platform, what's really exciting for me too, is that it represents more than just a fueling aircraft. It'll also be a command and control for other aircraft. What I'm looking at, I put language in the appropriations committee to continue to research. These are collaborative combat aircraft, which are basically unmanned, autonomous systems.
Yeah.
They fly along with a pilot. The pilot will actually command not just his or her aircraft, but all of these CCAs that will be flying around as well. And it will likely fly with KC-46s. So we could get that next generation aircraft in Southbridge, which would be really great.
Hopefully, this is gonna change confrontations around the planet as technology comes in. Most important, I hope it keeps everybody out of conflict.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And that's the case.
Yeah,
All right.
peace through strength.
Yeah. So the southern border is always in the news, but we have a huge northern border.
We do.
All right. So you're doing some work there too.
I am, yeah, and I remind my colleagues every day, and there is a northern border too.
Yeah.
I chair Homeland Security Committee, and my responsibility are all the borders of the country. But the northern border needs resources, and we're seeing incursions coming across on a regular basis. I just was able to secure funding through my position to create a northern border coordination center, which is going to coordinate all the elements of the Department of Homeland Security all along the northern border, and we're looking to locate that at Selfridge Air National Guard Base.
Oh my God, that's like perfect. All right, for protecting USPS, because I've got my own thoughts on this, but when you look at the cost efficiency of it to send a letter, there's no real alternative,
Mhm.
right?
Right, right.
So what do we do there? I mean, there's been talk of privatization. There's been all this stuff that's people kind of kicking around. What do you think is the inevitable?
Well, we want to keep the postal service with the form that it is because it provides a really a indispensable public function, and that means that they deliver to every single address in America every day, and that's service first is first and foremost. And it really goes back to the beginning of the postal service when Ben Franklin was the first postmaster general, and our framers said we need a postal service to connect this new country and connect everybody together, and that hasn't changed. Every address needs to have that. But they have to be able to break even. They're running a business. Letters are not being sent like they used to. It's more packages, so they have to change. Right now, they're going through a number of those changes, and I'm a guy all about change, but I also want to make sure they're doing it in a way that doesn't damage service. I just asked for, and the Postmaster General just put a freeze on some of the changes they were making. Here, as we're up here in the Upper Peninsula, that was a real concern with folks up here. The Postal Service was going to shut down a processing center here in the UP, and all the mail, instead of going there, was going to go to Wisconsin before it came back to the UP. Even if you're just mailing it from Marquette to Munising, it's got to
Yeah.
go to Wisconsin and then come back. And that's not that great of idea, especially in the wintertime. It's really a bad idea. And so we've paused that and said, let's get a better sense of how we make sure, especially our rural areas. The rural areas rely on the Postal Service more than anybody.
Well, and you're also talking about jobs in an area that needs jobs. That's the
Absolutely.
most important stuff.
Absolutely.
Gary, it's always good to see you, and thank you for representing us in the job that you do there. And please pass on our best to the family.
Oh, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you, Chris.
All right.
Take care.
U.S. Senator Gary Peters, and we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, and we're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from Mackinac Island. And I'll tell you right now, there's not a better place on earth. We're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And, one of those things that makes our economy go around, and the reason we even need policy is money. We need money to make things happen. And Chris Reisig is with us right now. He is the CEO of Renaissance, right?
That's right.
All right. It's good to have you here. It always is. And you are a must have on every year for us because you are right there in the middle of the economic indicators.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I feel like we are with the changes in the economy and all that venture capital and startup companies are playing a big role in the changes in America right now.
Yeah, it wasn't that many years ago. We were sitting here doing interviews saying, what's the biggest problem? Access to capital. And we have no venture capital money in the state.
That was the time when I started Renaissance 15 years ago. Michigan was sort of a third tier state.
Yeah.
And if you look forward in that time, the amount of venture capital every year in Michigan's probably gone up almost 10x. And it is definitely a place to watch for people around the country.
Well, I remember when Berengia came from the West Coast, right? And I had lunch with their guy because he wanted to get a feel for things. And he said, "Yeah, we're looking at Michigan as the land of opportunity."
Well, if you think about it, we have our research universities, which tend to be sort of the engine that drives it. There's no place that has better, larger research institutions. University of Michigan is the number one public research university, and not a lot of people know. 25 startup companies came out of U of M last year.
Yeah.
Again, number one in the country among public universities.
We used to cover their tech transfer that would take place. Matter of fact, that might be where we first met.
That's right. So I actually just became the chair of the National Advisory Board for Tech Transfer, now called Innovative Partnerships.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and you're right. They spin off all the time. And of course, we know the automotive industry has always spun off patents and opportunities
Right.
and businesses. Let's tell everybody about Renaissance, though.
Sure. So Renaissance is a fund of funds. So what we do is we invest in top venture funds around the country and under the condition that they begin to look at startups in Michigan. And we've gotten into some great funds and gotten those funds engaged here, in part through an event we do twice a year called Undemo Day, where we work with the universities and the seed funds, et cetera, and find what are the 100 or so best startups in Michigan. And we bring in a couple hundred VCs and sort of put them together in hundreds of one-on-one meetings, with the whole idea being letting these funds around the country know the great things going on here, but also the result should be they should be investing in startups. And if you fast forward, now we're 15 years in, we've helped attract almost 3 billion into Michigan startups from venture funds in our network.
Unbelievable. And it used to be they would say venture funds, you put money into it, and the 15th one pays for the 14 mistakes. That's not the percentage anymore.
Gosh, no. I mean, that's a tough way to live.
Yeah.
No. I mean, certainly there is a high failure rate, but there's a high failure rate in business generally.
Right.
But a good venture fund's going to have more than one hit. They're going to have a few hits, and they're going to be smart about those that are misses, kind of realizing it early and not continuing to put sort of good money after bad at something that's not working.
Well, it's timely to talk about this just coming out of COVID. You had a pretty good hit just about that time.
We did. So we had a stake in Moderna, really founders shares in Moderna. And it was great because it was great for us because we felt like at a time when everybody felt helpless, here was something we had worked on that was paying off for the world. I actually volunteered and was in the clinical trials at Henry Ford in Detroit. With when I was comfortable, it was safe, and so I put my arm out there and let them give me a shot.
Well, if you couldn't, there'd have been a worry with that.
That's right. That's right.
You know? Well, so let's talk about about the ongoing business plan. Are you on a continuum of raising money so that you can reinvest, et cetera?
Right. When you're in our world, you raise money every few years and then you invest it, and it's a normal cycle. And then as you get returns, you send it back to your investors. And it's usually a 3 or 4 year cycle that funds like ours go through. It's a pretty difficult time in the venture world right now, but so was 2008, 2009 when we started. That was a difficult time. turned out to be those were the best years for investing.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way the cycles run. 2020 and 2021 were really great times. You know, in retrospect, are they going to have performed like the 2009 companies and 2010 companies? The Moderna, which was 2010.
Yep.
You know, those are the ones that tend to come out of hard times and really, you know, outperform others.
Well, there's no bad time to start a good business.
Right.
You know,
That's
and
right.
it's interesting those times. It's almost like the colleges kind of notice when there's a economic downturn, when there's high unemployment, people start going back to school, getting
Right.
up new skill. Same thing happens with what we're
Right.
seeing.
And that's really that is going to be as we move forward, what's going to make a difference in Michigan? It's really going to be that. It's going to be having an educated, trained workforce because all these great startups are happening and they all have to hire people,
Yep.
you know, and many of them with special skills.
And we got to get people in here. Atmosphere here pretty good. We got about 30 seconds left.
Yes, I mean nationally it's tough. Michigan is doing better than its share, and we have a lot of really wonderful companies that are growing here right now. So I'm pretty bullish on what's happening here.
Well, Chris, it's always good to see you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. Chris Reisig from Renaissance Venture Capital. We are going to be right back, but right now we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where we were invited to the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. Stick with us. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Coverage. All right. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we are coming to you from the lovely Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. And we're here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And Scott Hippica joins us right now. How you doing, bud?
I'm great. It's great to be here, and thanks for taking the opportunity to talk to me about partnerships.
Well, and partnerships it is because you're the grand poobah at the Israel Business Bridge, right?
It's Michigan Israel, Business Accelerator. So we're the state of Michigan's lead for partnerships between this great state and Israel to drive job creation and economic growth on behalf of our state.
You know, and I apologize for going back to the bridge,
It's
but
okay.
we've been
Yes.
really working with you guys since you were at the bridge
Right.
back then.
Right. So that was 15 years ago, and then in
Just about.
2017.
Yeah.
So we created the MIBA under Mark Davidoff's leadership, and
Yep.
so yeah, if you of course know Mark, just a wonderful leader in our state.
Yep.
And so I'm blessed to be the CEO of the MIBA. As a matter of fact, I leave for Israel on Saturday.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
All right, so let's talk to everybody about what it is,
sure.
because then we're going to talk about some of the accomplishments.
Sure. Yeah. So the MIBA, as I mentioned, we're the state of Michigan's lead, working through MEDC to support international trade and job creation on behalf of the state. We focus on 6 sectors. The mobility side is one of our large ones. Health tech, advanced manufacturing, industry 4.0. Food and ag tech, which is a huge part of our economy here in Michigan. The defense industry is a huge part of Michigan's industrial base. So many opportunities to really grow our economy in Michigan, and we focus on those areas that really support Michigan's economy. And what's unique about Israel, it's known as the startup nation. It has the most amount of startups per capita in the world, really. And so when you think about what that represents for our companies here in Michigan to build partnerships, and that's why I said this is about partnerships, is really just to create jobs so that so our kids, your kids, everyone's, so we can really grow our economy and ensure that
Brings jobs.
yeah,
What else
and
brings jobs?
as a matter of fact, we had a company from Israel that we partnered with MEDC. And they're creating 20 jobs. That was earlier. That was in late 2023, and so we this last week we hosted 11 women in the mobility space for this roundtable that we did, where we had over 30 business leaders from the OEMs and other manufacturing companies in the mobility space.
Wow.
Supported this event. We did that at New Lab. The OEMs rolled out the red carpet last week to host these Israeli women in the mobility space that work both in the automotive as well as in the sustainability field.
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a time when Israel and their startups wanted to come here because there obviously wasn't the opportunity to grow there or the room.
Right. And that opportunity exists even more today. The opportunities in Michigan, just because of the relationships that we have. And that's why I go back to this partnership, right? What it truly means to build a partnership. And I recognize it's a complex environment right now, the geopolitical environment. But at the end of the day, this is about people, and it's about building just partnerships based upon trust, teamwork, and transparency to drive Michigan's economy.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of what we do. And as I mentioned, I'll be in Israel on Saturday. We're going to be there for a large mobility conference that is on June 4th. We're going to have a Michigan pavilion. Folks from Michigan are going to teleport into Tel Aviv for this conference, and we're going to have Israeli companies teleport to Michigan. It's going to be a really cool event.
So let me ask you something, and this is a question they're all going to want to have me ask. That's a hotbed right now in that area. You feel good about this?
Yeah, from a safety and security perspective, I mean, there's obviously, as we think about what a lot of our sources of media are really kind of promoting, it's like any other part of the world. I know in Israel right now is a very complex environment, and I
Yeah.
truly recognize that, right? But at the end of the day, as we're sitting here together, it's about people, and as we really think about how we can build this partnership to drive jobs and or to drive economic development and create jobs,
Yeah.
right? That's really what this comes down to. It's about partnerships and really just attracting Israeli innovation to help Michigan.
Scott, is there much red tape, political maneuvering that you have to go through to get these things to happen?
No, as a matter of fact, there's on the political side, there's none. You know what this is about? It's much more just about finding a match, right? So if you have a Michigan company that's looking for innovation and you have an Israeli company that's offering this innovation, it's about connecting them together to really just say, okay, how is there a good fit?
Yeah.
And then really curating that partnership so that it can create jobs.
Yeah. So how often do you go over there, and do you take groups of business guys over there?
Yeah, so I go over once a quarter, sometimes more. It sort of is really dependent on the opportunities and what's out there. So we host it, as I mentioned, we host a group last week. I'm going. I'll leave on Saturday. It just depends sort of what's happening in the world. We're doing this particular event on June 4th. It'll be remotely for these Michigan companies, but that's just I think from the standpoint of just travel schedules and availability.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, it's good to have you down here. Thanks for doing this. And thanks for doing this for Michigan's economy because it does make a huge difference.
We're honored to do it. We wouldn't be able to do it without our partners. And thanks for obviously the opportunity to chat today.
We love promoting you guys. We really do. Scott Hippico, of course, from the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator. We're on Mackinac Island right now, and we're in the Grand Hotel, and we are here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference, and we'll be back with a whole lot more. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, and that's because this is the site of the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And talk about policy, and look who pops up. Head policy maker in the national capital for us for how many years? I mean,
Well, I went into the U.S. House in 1997. I went into the U.S. Senate in 2001.
wow.
So it'll be 28 years,
Yeah. Oh my God.
not counting the state, by the way.
Oh,
So,
no, no,
and
no.
yeah, yeah,
And way back to county
I know,
commissioner
county
like
commissioner.
that too
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, right? So I failed to announce that our guest is U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow. Debbie, let's talk a little bit because we were just talking off air. It's kind of an unwinding state
It is.
for you. That many years and things archived and and everybody wants me to ask you what's next.
I know.
And you had a great
Yeah.
answer for that.
Well, I first of all, I'm running through the tape, and secondly, I'm not allowed under the ethics rules to even talk to anybody about next. I can tell you this: I'm staying in Michigan. I've lived
Good.
my whole life. I can't imagine being anywhere else. I'm not interested in a full-time job. I want to still, contribute and participate in things, and but not. I've had people, suggest full-time jobs, and I've
Yeah,
said no. If I wanted a full-time job, I'd stay in the U.S. Senate. So so this is something that I'm ready to make a turn. And by the way, my mom's almost 98 and doing well, but I want more. These are
sure.
precious times with
Yeah.
her and my grandkids. So it's time to pass the torch.
Your mom is a trooper. I
She's
think I've
amazing.
seen you at every one of your events.
She is amazing.
Yeah,
I look at her and I go, I have good genes.
no kidding. So you better think about this
I
after.
know. That's right.
Well,
That's right.
you've done a million things, but one of the things I want to ask you most about is your work with the Farm Bill year
Yes.
after year
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
and what you've done for the agricultural industry in the state of Michigan.
What's interesting when I think back about it, and this is the sixth farm bill I've been involved in, the third one I'm leading. So we're trying to get a 5-year farm bill done this year. But when I came into the Senate, every part of agriculture was covered under what we call the farm bill, which is all the policy and the funding, except fruits and vegetables. Now, if you look around Michigan, what do we grow? Fruits
Yeah,
and vegetables. And so almost half the cash receipts of agriculture were not included in the farm bill. And so I spent years finally got a new, what they call title of the farm bill. And fruits and vegetables are now supported. Research, marketing, we do a lot with organics, we do a lot. And I've also broadened out the farm bill used to be mainly for the South, for the big growers, and it was mainly cotton, rice,
yeah.
peanuts, or livestock, and so on. And so now it covers everything in the country, and it covers everything in Michigan, and it covers small farms. We've expanded to urban farms. So you see small farms in Detroit or whatever, who people grow things, then they go to Eastern Market and sell, and then they get customers. And if they get enough customers, then they get a storefront. And so we're creating more small businesses. So the idea of leveraging a food economy is something that I've led, and we're creating more jobs, and we also are recognizing the strength of Michigan.
So we only have 6 minutes, and I've got 2 hours worth of things I want
Yeah,
to ask you about.
yeah,
One of the things that has really been noteworthy is how you have opened the doors for women.
yes.
So talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that. You've got to be proud of.
I am. When I came into the state house, there were 8 women, none in the state senate, none statewide, none national. And so you fast forward now, we've got our second woman governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, first woman leading the state senate in Winnie Brinks. And so, and it makes a difference. It's not just symbolic. If you want a democracy to work, you have to have everybody's ideas and experiences at the table. Everybody's.
Yeah.
When I came into the state house, the speaker was talking about women's issues. They had a committee called Constitutional Revisions and Women's Rights Committee, and he wanted all the women on that committee and nothing else. And I said, every issue is a woman's issue. We pay taxes, we start businesses, we care about healthcare, we care about agriculture, and so I refused to sit on that committee. And shortly after that, they dissolved the committee. But um, we are better if everybody's participating.
So let's talk a little bit about global positioning Michigan and our country. Because there's a lot of worry
Hmm.
about international. How you feel our status is sort of
Well, it's a complicated situation. I mean, as you know, around the world, it's a complicated situation. Um, I think what's being now to bringing supply chains home is really important for us. If we learned anything from COVID, you can't depend on something like little microchips overseas and not make them here when they're in every product we need, right? And so, um, in positioning, we want. I always tell people we want to export our products, not our jobs. And for too long, we were okay with doing it, exporting our jobs, basically.
yeah.
And so now that's turned around. President Biden's honestly done more than anyone I have seen in saying we're going to redirect, whether it's chips or whether it's bringing other kinds of manufacturing back. We're going to do production tax credits so you don't get the tax credit unless you make it in America, which is really significant. So we need those international relationships and we need to trade and but the truth is I remember in the 90s when GM first went into China, that wasn't you couldn't just go in. You had to give a majority ownership to the Chinese government, majority ownership and turn over all your IP, all your intellectual property. So we wonder now how they got all that. I mean, so level playing field is important. Level and so that's the job of our federal government is to say, yeah, we want markets, we want relationships, but got to be a level playing field. And you don't get to take all of our intellectual property, for free,
Right.
and then leave us in a situation where we can't compete because you didn't have to pay for it.
They've leveraged it. Debbie, it occurs to me this is probably our last policy conference with you as a U.S.
It
Senator.
is.
And
It is.
I have to tell you how much, honestly, I'm thankful for your leadership, what you've done for the state of Michigan, and I cherish our friendship.
And I as well. And watching everything you have done over the years,
Mm.
small business and economic development, everything is
It's
wonderful.
it was a perfect career for a guy who couldn't get a job. Really, I mean,
Well, you've done well.
well, yeah, thanks, Bill. U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow, and we're coming to you from the policy conference on Mackinac Island put on by the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce. Again, Debbie, thank you
My
for
pleasure.
joining us. We appreciate it. I'm Chris Holman. We'll be right back on the Michigan Business Network. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference takes place, and we are so glad to be a part of it. And here's the mom, the big sister, the mom, yeah. COO of the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce, Tammy Carnreich, who incidentally is featured in our backdrop here. Yeah. I don't remember a day you didn't look great, so we're there.
You, Chris, again.
It's
Thank
good to
you.
be
Thank you
with
for
you
the
too.
invitation.
You know what else? This is such a phenomenal job. I mean, there is no day in the year and probably place on the planet that this happens, where everybody is in the same spot.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking with Suzanne Clark from the U.S. Chamber
Yeah,
last night, and I told her about, every year we have a metropolitan chamber come to visit because they want to do this.
yeah,
No one's ever been able to do it.
yeah.
And she said the closest thing is West Virginia takes over the Greenbrier. Well,
Well,
that's
sure.
not nothing compared to what we take over.
Yeah, that's
So we're very proud that it's our 43rd year. We're still going strong, and no one can replicate it.
no, it is unbelievable what happens here. Now, let's go behind the scenes a little bit because this is not something that would you start planning about 6 weeks out?
2 weeks after.
Yeah.
2 weeks after this one ends, we'll be planning next year's.
What are you doing with the 2 weeks, for God's sakes? I mean,
Unpack the truck, unpack everything, get all the things together, get settled, and get schedules done for the chair and get to work.
well, the other thing that you have, besides getting everybody in one place, is the speakers you have and the presentations you have. And I went through my invites the other night, and it's like it's treacherous because I want to be at all of them and I
It's
can't.
hard. It's very hard. And we do try to curate it. So if there's a particular area of interest, so like, up front today in the afternoon, you have three very powerful
Yeah,
female leaders that are national and going to bring a really good perspective. Then you've got the national and global politics with Chuck Todd and Paul Ryan and Harold. I mean,
yeah.
and then you end the day with Dan Gilbert and the mayor of Detroit, Mayor Duggan, and then you kick off the next morning, and I mean,
It
it
just
is a
keeps
lot.
coming.
It
It
just
just
keeps
keeps coming.
coming, but we have to make sure you get value for your investment.
Well, everybody gets value for their investment. How many people are involved in this? How many are you holding a big stick over?
To put this together,
Yeah.
oh, so we have about 48 of our own staff, and then we have probably over 100 contractors that work with us, especially for production technology, all the AV, that big LED screen you see, et cetera. So we've got a lot, and then count the Grand Hotel team in there, all the security that's supporting us. We can get close to 200 that make this happen.
I'm glad you brought up the Grand Hotels team because it wasn't too many years ago. It was under different ownership when Dan Musser was here. Ha has it worked out? I mean, it appears that it has, but you never know behind the scenes.
It's worked out seamlessly.
Really?
David Jursak, who's the president here, works very, very hard to make sure everything goes smoothly. He's very, very in tune with politics and business.
Yeah.
So he knows, based on our conference, what's going to be needed. They take care of our customers very, very well. They've been investing in the properties. It's been a great transition. We're really pleased.
I ran into him, talked to him a little earlier, and I told him it's to us, the attendees, it's seamless. I don't know if there were problems. I don't want to know if there were problems.
That's good. As long as you don't know, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So tell me about the quagmire you jumped through to get speakers, because at one time I was part of an organization that had entertainers come in.
Oh, sure.
Oh my God. It
Yeah.
was like, I mean, it was putting a puzzle together.
So, we first, obviously we put together our theme and our pillars. From that is how we develop the agenda, and that's how we look then for what speakers. So, we always go for national speakers, but we also have to always have Michigan CEOs, right?
Right.
So we start with the keynote speakers. And, first of all is, does anybody on the committees have friends and family to these speakers to help us out?
Oh,
When not, then we have to go to speakers bureaus.
yeah.
And that's usually when you pay for them too.
Yep.
So we do what we have to do to get the large keynote speakers first. Then we go to the panels, which we look at Michigan CEOs, entrepreneurs, etc. So we do have a formula down for it. It's never easy though, because you can have a list of 30 speakers you want and end up only being able to get 10.
Yeah. It's funny, events like this, they say, every 5, 6 years you should tweak them, make them really look different. This looks different every year
Every year.
with the
Someone
same formula.
someone said to me in an interview the other day, I think it was Chuck Stokes, he goes, "What's your What's your toughest challenge with the conference? And I said, well, first of all, it's not tough.
Yeah.
It's not tough.
Oh, look at you.
I like this. I said, but it's keeping relevant.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Well,
Year after year, we can tweak on how to make things better, add things, make things more special, but we have to stay relevant every year.
one of the things I've loved most about this is that the after effects, you always have a program of work that comes out of this.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And last year, the power of and,
Yeah.
it's still going.
Yeah.
It's being used by speakers, whether it be government, business, etc. And it's going to actually be on stage. Matt Elliott's going to talk about it in a Mackinac moment to really talk about the impact it had.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, Tammy Carnwright, CEO of the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce and mom of this policy conference, which we're broadcasting from. Thanks for making time for us. We
Very,
appreciate it because I know how busy you really are.
thank you for always having me.
No, I love having you. I do.
Keep
All right. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from the Grand Hotel, and we are on Mackinac Island because this is the few days that the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce puts on their policy conference. And so all the people involved in business around the state are here. And of course, we have one as our guest right now, Todd Gustafson, CEO, Grand Poopah, is that of Connexus.
Yeah.
How you doing, bud?
I'm good. It's great to see you on especially on the island.
You know what? And we're having some fabulous weather. So
You're having some fabulous weather. It's beautiful, but you also had some fabulous speakers I can see and heard. So
unbelievable. I mean, and we're always very fortunate. We get everybody pretty much we want to interview. But I just had Tammy Carnrick on, who's the COO, and we were talking about the quality of speakers this year
yeah,
and how frustrating it is to try to see three different events at 10:15, all of which you want to see,
I
you
know.
know?
The speaker series is awesome this year. In fact, a little side note, actually Susie Matthews, the president and CEO of the US Chamber is here. She's the keynote at one. She was my boss when I worked in DC. Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, many moons ago.
Well, I knew the former guy who had been
Yeah,
there.
Donahue,
Yeah,
Tom. I
Donahue.
worked directly for Tom.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So Susie was the chief of staff, and so I would interact with them all the time.
this was interesting because when I was chair of the NSBA in DC, I worked with Sandy Baroa
Oh,
because Sandy was at the
yeah,
SBA,
yeah.
right?
It is a small. In fact, we talk to young people that come into the professional world, and like it is a small world. You may not realize that, but
It's,
so connect with the really smart people. Be careful about what you say and do because people are paying attention.
no, they aren't. Like my dad always said, don't scratch inappropriately. You don't know who's watching.
That's a good one.
Maybe that's a pattern, you know.
No, I like that.
Hey, let's talk about connections.
Yeah.
What you are.
Yeah, so Connexus Group is an enterprise of a family of organizations. Four of them are nonprofits. We just acquired a for-profit, and then we also are an education service provider for a public school. So we do a lot of stuff.
You do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting.
it's in two channels though. One is workforce, and the other is economic development. So we're active in those both spaces. We're actually headquartered in Benton Harbor, St. Joseph, but we have services and programming and customers, frankly, across the state.
Well, I have to say, you brought a real statewide perspective to the board at Michigan Celebrates
Yeah,
when you
thank
came
you.
on a few years ago, and you've made a major difference.
I really enjoyed that. I think it's a privilege for me to be able to sit around that table with people like you, as I call the small business person of, you're the small business champion for Michigan. And you've got this SBAM and you've got SBDC and Edward Lowe Foundation, a group of organizations that actually really care and do a lot of work for
Yeah,
small entrepreneurs.
and of course MEDC, big part
And the
of that too.
MEDC is a
Yeah.
big part of that too. And for me to just see the smiles on the faces of those people, those companies that get awarded and that are just recognized, I mean that makes it all valuable right
No,
there.
you're absolutely right. And the reason I've always loved that night is because I've had the privilege of being up on the stage all night
Yeah.
long, and I'm able to look out and see those people. And when the CEO of a company gets an award, the whole table erupts.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It is. Their faces light up. I mean, they're hootering and hollering. I mean, they're super excited because as you know, as a small business owner, the amount of time, effort, sacrifice that goes into that.
Oh,
And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it's really important to me. Started out. My mom started out as a single mom, and she had three kids. And she started out as a secretary. She went on to become a real estate. Then she became the best real estate agent in her market. Then she bought the company and then became the best real estate. Then she became head of the UPA Realtor Association. My grandfather owned a manufacturing company. My point is, I know that they made huge sacrifices all the time with their family, with their friends in order to make it work. So you got to be passionate about it. And if you got one night to honor them all, I
yeah.
think that's super special.
It's interesting because I always define a small business person as someone who at some point has gone to bed on Wednesday worried about payroll on
Yeah,
Friday.
exactly. I remember those
Some of those
conversations.
anxieties that, if you haven't experienced them,
Yeah,
you really haven't tasted the water. So to
no.
speak. All right. So you glazed over, you bought a for profit.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that.
yeah. Yeah, well, I feel like we're unique in that again we're a nonprofit that owns several nonprofits, but also purchased a for-profit. The for-profit is HR Collaborative. They do a lot of work out of West Michigan, but actually have clients all over. And I'll tell you, one of their clients really cool, super cool, is Netflix. So what they do is human resources. They're the human resource experts. So they don't do staffing. They staff the HR departments. So a lot of times companies are like, I don't have money or need a full-time HR person, but I do have some HR issues I need to work through.
Yeah.
That's when they come in and you can hire them to do that.
Unbelievable. That what a service that'll be. And hopefully make a little money to kick back into the kitty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The notion around that is taking the for profit and putting it back, investing it back into the nonprofit's missions and purpose, right? So the other four I talk about, they help manufacturers with training, or they help with adult education, or they help with at-risk youth. So that again, they need resources to do that work.
Right.
The notion is we'll take that for profit and reinvest it in there.
Well, listen, bud, thanks for everything you do. And thanks for being here today. We
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you
me. I
giving
really
us the
appreciate it.
time.
This is my favorite part of the island, coming to talk to you.
That
I,
is so
I love
sweet.
actually this, so thank you.
Todd Gustafson, CEO of Connexus. I'm Chris Holman, and you're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. And we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where we are attending the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman coming to you from the Grand Hotel. That's right, on Mackinac Island. And it is grand this week because the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce is having their policy conference here. But Dave Jurzik is with us right now, and he's the head of, you're the Grand
President.
Poobah.
I wouldn't say poobah, but
Okay. No, but you're the,
that's a role that I aspire to.
yeah, okay, okay. Well, you just got promoted right here and there. Yeah. So, Dave is in charge of all operations, everything here. Basically the CEO locally. Let's talk a little bit about that because this was the Mustards were good friends,
Yes.
and I knew Dan well, and the purchase of it. Walk us through that a little bit.
So the building was purchased in October of 2019 by KSL Capital, who is our ownership group. They happen to own our management company as well, which is Davidson Management or Davidson Hospitality Group. And so we work for both Davidson Hospitality Group and obviously our ownership group. And the transition was is our that group finds some great hotels, but they love iconic properties. They at one time owned the Del Coronado. They owned a homestead, which I ran as well, in Virginia. And so they love properties like this. And they loved, to be good stewards of them.
Yeah, you ran the homestead.
I did.
That
I
had to
did.
be fun.
It was
Yeah,
super fun.
a little bit of history in that area.
A little bit. It was funded or founded in 1766.
Yeah,
So they say that, that hotel was around for about 150 years before Grand was built.
yeah, good idea. Good idea. Um, Older buildings. I mean, I have to say, I raised my kids in a building that was built in 1889,
Okay.
and every time you open a wall,
You find something.
you find something
Surprise.
weird. Yeah. Do you run into that much here?
We did. So we started our 5-year restoration of the front porch last year.
Oh,
So we finished 2 years of it. This year, the first year we didn't find much. And then this past year we found everything we missed. Well, we found a lot.
yeah.
So we found out that the columns on the front porch had steel beams in them to support the building. And those were put in 1982. Unfortunately, there were some beams, some columns that didn't have beams in them. Yeah. So it's a bit of a surprise.
Surprise.
We understand why it happened back in 82. But they're fixed and they're ready to go and we're moving forward.
Okay. So from a structural standpoint, I mean that
Perfect.
over time
Yeah.
that'll pay its toll if you don't fix it.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, this is quite a week too.
It
I
is.
mean, the fact that I don't think that the chamber has a room in this hotel that they don't own for this week. Is
They
that
they
right?
they buy out the hotel for 3 days.
Yeah,
Three,
unbelievable stuff.
yes,
Really
yes.
is.
Huge, great partners.
So do your folks look forward to this? I mean,
We
because this is like A and elbows.
we do. And so I talked to somebody earlier today and I said, we'll start planning for next year in about 3 weeks.
No kidding.
The understanding of, you know, what kind of rooms we'll need. Are the sponsors coming back and needing the same rooms? Do we need to move some people around because maybe they outgrew a space,
Yeah.
that they need additional space, or where we can find additional opportunities for people?
David, I've stayed here over the years many times, and the rooms are always enamoring, and they're all different.
All different.
Is that still the search?
It is.
Is
They're
it?
like fingerprints. We
Yeah.
have 388 individually decorated guest rooms.
Yeah.
Dorothy Draper and Company is still our designer.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they continue to do a great job for us. We renovated the Woodfill Suite this past year. Carlton Varney the year before. We did the cupola, so you need to go and see the cupola. It's the new cupola this year.
What you did with the pool.
It was, and we talked to Dan, and Dan told us that him and his father spoke at great length about doing something at the pool. Now, we have a lot of businesses. Dan and his family had one business. We had a lot of businesses that allows us to pull some money away from those other businesses. And so we spent a lot of money. We understood what the responsibility was to make sure the footprint of the pool was right, but we also wanted to give some additional modern amenities to it.
Wow. It's just as unbelievable. Like you say, it's a fingerprint. You
Oh, yeah.
can't go anywhere on the planet and get what you have here.
You can't. And then you put it on Mackinac Island.
I know.
I mean, a Grand Hotel would be grand anywhere,
Yeah.
but Mackinac Island makes it even that much more special.
And there's a good kind of, I don't want to call it a merchants association, but a business association here on the island. Everybody seems to get along pretty well.
Really well. And
Yeah.
we have a tourism bureau. We are about tourism. That is our business. We
Yeah.
all share in that same business.
Yeah.
Whether you are in the actual industry or supporting that industry, what we do, we all open up about the same time. We all close the same time. We all do work in the off season together,
Yeah.
and we work together.
Yeah.
If we're all successful, that's great.
All right. So now everybody out there wants me to ask, where do you live? Because you fly in by helicopter every day?
I wish, but no. Actually, I love living here. My wife jokes because we live in Virginia. We have a home in Virginia.
Okay.
My wife goes back about once a month to check on her father and in the house,
Right.
and I never leave the island.
No kidding.
I left the island, aside from going last year to a graduation. I left the island once, and I really felt uncomfortable, so I just like rather stay here.
Isn't that, does this become your home?
Oh, it is.
So you're going to be here a while.
I intend to be here. This is my career.
Well, I'll tell you what, I hope
Let's
so.
go.
You've done a marvelous job here.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure for us to work with you
Thank
and
you.
your staff.
It's great to see you every year.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
Dave Zierzik, who's the CEO of the Grand Hotel. How about that? And that's where we're coming to you from. We are here for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. Okay. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here. And we are coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And that's where everybody is. And gosh, look who popped up. The governor of the great state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
Good.
We were just chatting about how great it is to be able to get up early and enjoy this beautiful weather.
It is. And I'm kind of enjoying going to bed earlier than I used to.
Ditto.
Well, you keep pretty busy. You do. Hey, and listen, I want to thank you on a personal note for coming to the Michigan Celebrate Small Business and making a statement. That room really enjoyed you, and it was all business people.
Well, it was great. It was a great event, a great crowd, and certainly I appreciate all the work that you've done to be a voice for and help small business advocate and get, reflected in our priorities as a state. It's crucial. It's the backbone of our economy. And so it was an honor to be there and certainly wanted to thank you for all your years of dedication too.
Well, I've managed for 20 years to stay out of the way, which is really my strength. Um, your perspective of small business, and you mentioned this in your preamble, but is a very healthy one. And a lot of times people have a tendency to say, "Oh, she's a Democrat. You know, she's going to be all union. She doesn't care about small business, etc." But you get that picture, and you came up through a business family.
Oh yeah, my dad was always, in the business sector, not small business, but, had that business mindset. My husband is a small business owner. He is always that voice is in my ear, about making it easier for the person that's taking a risk and
Yeah.
putting money and sweat and tears into building something and putting people to work. I mean, it's really, I think, a courageous thing for someone to start a small business. And to be successful at it takes an incredible amount of strength and grit. And so I have a great deal of respect for small business.
You know, it's interesting. I've always said if you're a small business person, if you've gone to bed on Wednesday night worried about Friday's payroll,
Yeah.
and there's that gut check that really makes you that way. You have done a lot on talent initiatives because that has been a challenge in Michigan for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah. Well, it's been a challenge in Michigan for decades, if we're honest. The auto industry was such a boon for us and it gave people a ticket into the middle class without pursuing, skills beyond high school. You could hone them, on the line and make a good living doing it and buy a place up north. And
Yeah.
in today's economy, we've got to have a different set of skills and it's going to continue to change. We've got to be nimble. And that's why we've got to level the financial barriers to people from pursuing those degrees, whether it's an X-ray tech or it's someone who's working on an EV or it is any other discipline. It's a set of skills that is quickly evolving as technology does. And that's why we've got to really invest and make it easier for people to get those skills.
No, you're absolutely right. And your GoPro, oh boy, what a program that was.
You know what? It started under the Snyder administration, and I think that's something that's really important for us to continue so that we can help small business that is investing in their own people to, evolve their skills as well. So I think we want business to be able to do that, and if the state has policy that supports it, I think it's great.
Well, one of the things I love about you is you don't throw out what the last person did and
No,
say, that's them. This is, we got to put in first. No, you took best
yeah,
practice.
I recognize I don't know everything.
What?
No, most politicians won't say that.
Ooh.
But, I try to surround myself with smart people. I try to, we created the Michigan Reconnect. Guess what? That was actually a Tennessee idea. We made it better and we made it a uniquely Michigan thing and we worked with the business community to do it.
Yeah.
But it's like if someone's got a good idea, let's replicate it. And if we can make it better, that's great.
Best practices winds up with the best usage. So let's talk about what you're focusing on this week.
So we got a lot of stuff. We're focusing really on creating an innovation culture in Michigan. So building out the infrastructure for innovation, making sure that we're lowering costs for people. We're gonna make it even more aggressive. We're gonna build 115,000 units, and we know affordable housing is a need, whether you're in Lansing or in Marquette, Detroit, or Traverse City. That is a universal need, and so that's going to be a focus. And then the others, lowering energy costs. So using some of this IRA money $300 million to upgrade 28,000 homes, whether it's weatherization or upgrading appliances or helping install solar. This is how we can bring down people's costs and I think help on the energy front.
Yeah, it's interesting that talent thing has been an issue, and we keep recruiting these companies here, and they're going to need like 450 jobs. And I'm always scratching my head going,
Where are they going to live?
yeah,
Yep.
and where are they?
Yeah.
In many cases.
Well, and that's why this is so important. And Michigan's strategy is not one size fits all. It's not we're going to build the same unit in all of these places that need them. It's what does the local community have? They have old stock that needs to be brought up to speed, up to date,
Yeah.
or is it a rural area that has no stock that we need to build from scratch? So different needs in different places, but we're being creative and we're working as partners and making sure that we're moving as fast as we can.
I'll tell you what you've done here is phenomenal. I appreciate it, and I appreciate our friendship.
Thank you. Me too.
All right, very good. The great governor of the great state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, and we're coming to you from the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference on Mackinac Island. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman.
He's rolling.
Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, and we're coming to you from Mackinac Island, and that's because the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce here at the Grand Hotel is having their annual policy conference. And what is bigger part of policy than transportation in the state of Michigan? So Alan Amici is here. He is the CEO of CAR, the Center for Automotive Research. Alan, it's always good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Good to see you, Chris.
Good to see you, my friend. You let's take 30 seconds and acquaint everybody with CAR.
CAR, the Center for Automotive Research, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with a mission to inform and advise. And we do that through our independent research. We like to bring like minded and unlike minded people together to talk about problems in the auto industry. And we also conduct our annual event, which is MBS, our management briefing seminars each year. That's the nature of CAR.
Well, and that's it in a nutshell, but you've got a couple of launches coming up, and I don't know what order you want to do them in, but take it away.
Sure. I'd like to share with you that CAR is launching a new platform. We call it CAR 2.0. And this is a new platform for us, and it's comprised of bringing deep industry executives into the fold of CAR, along with our industry analysts. And we brought people in that really understand the nature of the auto industry. These are people that really have developed cars, understand cars, and have launched vehicles in the industry. And it's brought together a powerhouse of executives and industry analysts. And our goal with CAR 2.0, this platform, is to be able to answer the also the so what. And this can allow companies, medium and large size companies, to make strategic decisions. And we think that the future of the automobile industry is clearer with CAR 2.0.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I got to tell you, the next thing we're going to talk about is the refresh of your MBS, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's go on that, and I want to preamble it with this. It is an awesome couple of days in Traverse City, and we run into people. As a matter of fact, one of the guys from Bosch I ran into at an AI conference in Beijing, China, recently. So you get the people there.
The reach of our manager briefing seminar is awesome. It does reach globally. So we are announcing a refresh of MBS 2024, and so MBS is going to have a new look and a feel. And we've had terrific cooperation with the OEMs. We have much tighter cooperation now, and the OEMs are contributing senior level speakers to this event, which is really important to the quality of MBS. And so the speakers that we're announcing now, we have Mark Royce, who is the president of General Motors, will be a keynote speaker. Joe Hinrichs, the CEO of CSX, will be a keynote speaker. Alan Swan, the president of Panasonic Energy Systems North America, will be a keynote. Robert Lee, the president of LG Energy Systems North America, will be a keynote. We also have speakers from Toyota, Honda, Ford, um, ZF, Eaton, and other companies that are Rivian that are also going to be participating in it. So much more involvement from our OEM partners. In addition to this, on Thursday, we're announcing a program with AAI, the Alliance for Automotive Innovators, which will be on supply chain. So this will be Thursday afternoon. This is a half-day session that will be part of MBS, and this is going to focus on supply chain. So we're bringing in industry executives on supply chain from the OEMs, but also from labor economics and policymakers to talk about how do you make supply chains more resilient? What are the policy impacts of a more resilient supply chain? What does nearshoring mean? What does friendshoring mean? And what are the implications of potentially tariffs to these supply chains? So this is new for MBS. This will be a half day on Thursday afternoon. So we'd love you to come out and check out our supply chain work that we're doing. Additionally, we have a section on EDCs for economic development corporations. So we're going to have a number of sessions during MBS where we're going to bring in economic developers from across the country, the Great Lakes region, but also other regions. And we're going to talk about site selection or what's important for our economic developers to land big projects within their states. And so we want to have a dialogue that, can enhance the ability for automakers to put plants and projects within the United States. So we got some terrific items coming up for MBS.
I love that economic development piece. One of the big movements right now is, do you have a big area that can be like a research park type thing, like 500 acres, and be able to put all these OEMs and suppliers within proximity, and nobody has those spots.
And it takes time to develop them as well, whether it's infrastructure or utilities. There's a lot of planning that's involved in it, and it's difficult to do in 1 year or 2 years. It does take some time, and so we want to get economic developers to talk about these things. We want them to hear from the OEMs on why this is important, so they can do the planning, and so we can be ready to go.
Yeah, and what we're looking for when we relocate. Alan Amici, CEO of Car, being with us, my friend, and the work you do.
Pleasure to be with you, Chris. Good to see you.
All right. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network, and we're coming to you right now from the Grand Hotel because that's where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. I'm Chris Holman, and we'll be right back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, coming to you from the Grand Hotel, where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce is holding their annual policy conference. And we have with us Courtney Phillips. Courtney, it's good to have you here. And you are with, I want to make sure I get this right, you're Secretary Treasurer for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union of Grand Rapids.
Yes, Local 951.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
So we are the largest private sector union in the state of Michigan. We represent close to 30,000 workers in the food and service industry. So like your Meyer grocery clerks, those are our members, Kroger, Rite Aid. We also represent a meat processing plant in Plainwell, Michigan, a cheese factory in Quapaw, Michigan.
So those unions
Day basis, most of our representatives are out there helping educate and enforce the contract, whether it's scheduling issues or wage concerns or really even dignity and respect. That becomes a large thing for a lot of workers is that they want to go to work and they want to feel appreciated and they want to feel like they have the autonomy and the support of their leadership. So
and you have how many members?
close to 30,000 workers.
All right. Now you are in Grand Rapids, but your organization is kind of statewide.
Yeah, so our Meyer members are the entire state of Michigan, including the UP, and then our natural jurisdiction for that is like kind of Ludington across Lansing and down. So we have Hardings and Kroger's in Rite Aid and other
Oh,
employers that are in that West Michigan area. So
okay. And how's the relationship with management?
it's it's always working at it, and I think there's always opportunity to keep working at it, but sometimes you got to agree to disagree and you got to go through our processes that are negotiating our collective bargaining agreements. Sometimes you work together and you get resolution, and it's a win-win for our members.
Now you've been doing this labor thing for a while.
Yeah, I've been with UFCW for about 20 years.
Well, you should have an idea what's going on
I
at this
try.
point. So what's next? You growth to other industries or more of the same? Or?
So, organizing opportunities come up all the time. I think right now is a great time to organize. I think workers are really interested in learning about how do they get a collective bargaining agreement with guaranteed rights. We did just last week get a tentative agreement for one of our newest cannabis retailers down in Southwest Michigan, and so we're very excited about that. And we continue to grow. In different ways with different industries, but always keeping true to our core, which is food and service.
Yeah, gotcha. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that respect thing, and a lot of times that's simply the culture of the corporate. You got to be feeling you're a big part of shaping a culture.
I think we are. And I think that, I teach a lot of my reps that you can walk into a unit and you can feel a negative culture, but with the right amount of energy and education and kind of working our members to find the resolution, like change the culture of that environment too.
Well, and so tell me a little bit about the demographic of your member. Is it all over the board, the ages and the backgrounds?
Yeah, so unlike other unions, we do represent workers from 15 of age to 85 and everything in between. And I think that's really exciting because you get a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different each generation has their own concerns and their own um needs within their work environment. And so I think that keeps us on our toes, but it's a very cool um and interesting membership base.
Well, and I was going to say that probably does keep you on your toes because the difference between this union member and this union member and how they feel rewarded and their perspective is very different. I harken back to when I talked to a business owner and he said we finally figured out, our Z generation. It was rock concert tickets.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
no, it's true.
Yeah.
Like why people show up for work are very different when you're 15 years old and when you're 35 years old and when you're 55 years
Yeah.
old, right? And I think that, you know, making sure that we negotiate strong collective bargaining agreements that represent all of our workers is really important, and being able to have something for everybody is really important.
So what's your footprint geographically?
Oh, in Michigan, like I said, Meyer members, we represent across the state, including the UP. And then geographically in Southwest Michigan, we have our multi-employer group.
So, given your, I guess your bylaws, are you able to go to other states and organize?
So we do not have jurisdiction to go to other states. We stick within our jurisdiction in Michigan. So
Well, we're glad we're keeping you here in Michigan.
happy to be here in Michigan. Yeah.
Well, it's very good to have you on here, Courtney Phillips, who is the Secretary Treasurer of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union of Grand Rapids. And I'm telling you, everybody learned a whole lot.
I hope so.
They really did. Thanks for being here.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right. I'm Chris Holman, and you're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network, which happens to be on Mackinac Island today. We're at the Grand Hotel, and we are coming to you from the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. And we will be back with more. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we are coming to you from Mackinac Island, where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce is putting on their annual policy conference. And we have with us right now Jennifer DeMott. And Jennifer is with Connexus, but you're also with half a dozen other things. And it's always hard to chart you. But the thing that I want to congratulate you on is what we just came through, which is the Michigan Celebrates Small Business. And you have been a driving force in that thing getting bigger and more dynamic, etc.
Yeah, so Michigan Celebrates Small Business is the Academy Award for our small businesses in Michigan. And we just had our 20th annual gala in Lansing just last week.
Yeah, it was amazing. 20 and what was the attendance? Like 850, I think.
We had just around 800 in attendance for this year's gala.
We kind of scaled back over the years. I mean, I always want to tell people that we were at 1,000 and found that the back rows were kind of disenfranchised, so to speak.
100 is really a nice group to network with. You get much over that. And besides, we were at capacity at the Breslin Center. We couldn't fit too many more in that venue.
Yeah, it was great. So, what it is, explain what it is actually. It's kind of a conglomeration of people giving away awards.
Yeah, so there are founding organizations to Michigan Celebrates, Michigan Business Network, Chris Holman being one of them, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, the Small Business Association of Michigan, as well as the Edward Lowe Foundation and the Michigan Small Business Development Center.
Yep. Yep. all represented on our backdrop here, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the point of it was at each one of these organizations to begin with, we're all kind of really, I guess, really indebted to their job, which was helping small business, but none of them spoke to each other. And so years ago, we kind of called them all together, and this was the result. We figured we needed something to make us come together, and it has just really blossomed over the years.
Yeah, I've been part of Michigan Celebrates for about 16 years, but really I think it was you, Chris Holman, 21 years ago, together and said, "Hey, let's make sure we amplify small business success and that we as collective organizations support small businesses at a whole new level."
Yeah. Well, and I got to say, Edward Lowe Foundation coming in was pretty crucial too to do the 50 companies to watch because originally they did that. Now it's a function of the entire board. So what happens from here on out? Because now the board has expanded.
Yeah, so we did recently expand our board of directors, including more small businesses from all areas of the state. What's next is we go beyond the award. So we celebrate one evening of the year. Takes a long time to get there, but we celebrate one evening. But really, Michigan Celebrates and the founding orgs are here to support those businesses to accelerate their growth all year long. So going beyond the award is connecting our awardees with the resources they need to do just that, accelerate their growth.
Yeah, and every one of the founders and every one of the board members brings something to the table that small businesses starting out can use. I mean, let's start with Edward Lowe Foundation. I mean, they've got that wonderful retreat center down there, and they do a lot of seminars, etc., that help small businesses get right sized.
Yeah, the foundation, they do a lot to support the growth focused companies. And, what they really do is provide a space and facilitated conversations to help the CEOs of those small businesses to think vision, to think big picture, and then bringing around peers from like minded small businesses to have the dialogue, to solve problems and look for opportunities.
Yeah, it's been tremendous, and of course, MEDC has been really overly supportive of this endeavor through the years.
Yeah, we could not have Michigan Celebrates without the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, not just because of how they engage in the event itself, but for all the support services that the MEDC provides to small businesses year round. Whether it's growth focused companies, startup companies, innovative companies, access to capital, they have really hit it out of the park related to small business services.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And now Connexus is chipping in too. You guys do a tremendous job there. You really do.
Yeah, Connexus Group is a nonprofit based out of Benton Harbor, and we support individuals, businesses, and communities locally to the Benton Harbor area, regionally, which is our 7 county region, and then statewide. So we're very much in the workforce development, community development, and business development spaces.
Yeah. And of course, SBAM brings that advocacy role that we all need so badly. Make sure things aren't happening on Capitol Hill that are going to injure us down the road, right?
Yeah, SBAM does an exceptional job with connecting to the needs of small businesses and then advocating for policy change or updates in order to allow small businesses the space to grow in Michigan.
Yeah.
Critical partner to Michigan Celebrate.
Well, Jennifer, congratulations to you, and of course Laura, who did a lot in regard to this.
Yes, Laura is our project manager who
Yeah.
really
And she took on a project.
she took on a project. But yes, big kudos to Laura back at Connexus for supporting the gala in that way.
Well, congratulations on that. Jennifer DeMud, who is with Connexus, but I would introduce as the president of the board, right, at Michigan Celebrates Small Business. All right. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, and we're coming right back to the Grand Hotel in Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we are coming to you from the beautiful Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. And we're here because of the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. Speaking of policy, we like policymakers up here, etc. And we have Kimberly Way. Kimberly is with she's a Chief Experience Officer. I love that title.
Thank you so
Right?
much.
With the Michigan Works Association.
That's right.
And so welcome to the show. It's good to see you.
Yes, I appreciate you having me.
And I'm fortunate I get to work with Kimberly a fair amount.
Yes, you're on our board, so we're
Yeah.
always thankful for
Yeah.
sure it's there.
Yeah, well, you might want to hold that comment for a while.
Okay, we'll wait.
Let's wait till it's performance based. In the meantime, let's let everybody know what the association is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a member-based organization. We're a nonprofit, and all of the Michigan Works agencies in the state of Michigan are our members. So the Michigan Works system is separated into 16 individual regions, each run by a local workforce development board. And then we, as their association, do advocacy on their behalf, professional development, and education.
And it's a great group, by the way, with this wonderful kind of mission to put people back to work. I mean, that's the main part of it.
Yes, at the heart of everything, it's all about getting Michigan back to work.
Yeah, and you know the irony of that is there's so much more than just getting to a job. It's
Mhm.
like sometimes it's I don't know, you feel better about yourself,
Yes,
all those things.
absolutely.
Maybe it's a dad or a mom who now is providing for a family. And there's so much to this.
There is.
It's really noble work. So tell me, because you are the advocacy part of this,
Mhm.
what are the priorities? What are you looking at for this section?
Yeah, so we have several priorities that we're advocating for. Two big ones that we're talking about at the policy conference and continue to kind of ask for our support for the Going Pro Talent Fund
Mm.
and then also for a Michigan Skills Fund. So the Going Pro Talent Fund is actually a fund that is given to businesses, and it's to help train either new employees that are coming in or incumbent employees that have been there for a while.
Yeah.
So over the past decade, 175,000 employees have been trained across 6,000 businesses in Michigan, and they have an average increase of 18% increase in their wage, and they're able to retain their workers because they're able to upskill them. They're getting the funding needed to do it. It doesn't take anything off of the business. It's a wonderful program. It's been going on a long time. It has bipartisan support, but the ask is always far greater than what's available. So we're always kind of asking for more in that pot.
Sure. It's interesting. We just had the governor on a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
and that was one of her programs.
Yes.
But she readily admitted, she said this started in the Snyder administration.
Right.
We just thought it was such a great idea.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I love about her. She takes great ideas,
Absolutely.
and moves them forward.
Mhm.
So we've also seen more people come back into the workforce since some of these things were initiated.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of gives them an in as far as gaining a credential if they don't have one there in order to be able to work in these industries. Maybe they were in a different career field when COVID happened, or kids, or some other barriers that kind of came in the way, and they're looking to start a new career altogether.
Yeah.
So it really is an open door for so many different opportunities, so many different types of people, in so many different stages of life.
All right. So when you go over to the Hill, so to speak, right, and you start looking for legislation that may harm us down the road, right? Are there any initiatives there? Are there any things we should be looking at there?
We're kind of looking for more support just around when we're supporting our workers and supporting our businesses. Pipelines are a really big deal right now, getting youth into the workforce. So anything we can do to support kind of those initiatives, those pipelines, teaching towards the hot jobs that are coming up in Michigan. I mean, we all know that we're at a talent disadvantage just because we don't have the population.
No, that's
So
right.
anything we can do to recruit that, retain that, that's all a really big deal for
Well,
us.
and not only the number of people, but the age of the people.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have
kind
an
of an
aging
aging
population and a retiring population, and all of that knowledge are leaving these industries.
I know.
So we're trying hard to kind of reinfuse that.
No,
into
you're
these
absolutely
different
right. Yeah.
organizations.
I'm noticing that a lot of the Michigan Works offices around the state are kind of doing more innovative, more outreach stuff than
Absolutely.
they've done in the past.
Yeah, so Michigan Works isn't just about reemployment and career services. they're ingrained in their communities. So they're partnering with training institutions, so community colleges, four-year universities, even certification programs, right? They're also involved with businesses, so they have an entire business services side, not just that career service where you go in and can get that training. But if you're a business, a small, mid, large business, you can come in and ask for resources either in retention, in training, in pipeline management. So they're kind of a jack of all trades. There's no wrong door when you come into a Michigan Works organization.
Yeah, and I think people need to know too, it's free. I mean, there's not going to be a bill that comes with it later.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you have a lot of volunteers too that are
Yeah.
behind the scenes doing some training, etc.
Absolutely. And I mean, like our board, we
Yeah.
have so many private sector partners that stand behind Michigan Works that have benefited from the system and really can speak to the good things that they do.
Well, I think part of that is like they always say about the mule, hit them on the head first, get their attention. When we started running out of workers, we started going, okay, where do we get involved? And so it is a bit of a necessity, but it's nice to see them back involved in those types of things.
Absolutely.
Well, Kimberly, it's always good to spend time with you, and thanks for joining us today. All right. Kimberly Way, the Chief Experience Officer at Michigan Works Association. I'm Chris Holman, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, where we're attending the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network.